Hi guys, good evening. Tonight we're gonna be going over two-speed transmissions. Just on the two-speed over here. I know I haven't been on YouTube much. Just been very busy. We're just going to discuss how a two-speed operates. Okay, so I set up one. This is basically a King motor setup. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how the parts of it basically. Okay, this is the first gear. Okay, and this is the second gear. This is one that I have lightened up when I used to do the long range driving. Okay, then you have your other bearing. Okay, of course this is not the correct leg shaft. Okay, this is because I didn't find one. Okay, and this is your housing for the striker that's going to open up when it's spinning. Okay, what you need to understand is two-speed, okay, has a one-way bearing as the first gear. Okay, so we go to the first gear, which is the one-way. Okay, which is the same over here, back with the car. It only locks in one direction. You see, it's free spinning this way, and it locks the other gear. So when this gear goes down, turns it to the right, it's gonna lock it and make everything work the way it's supposed to work. Okay, and then you have the second gear. Second gear has a little bearing, okay, which we're gonna throw in here. We'll put it in on this side for now. That's a freewheeling gear all the time. Okay, only when the two-speed locks up is when this is gonna lock everything up completely. Okay, so on the transmissions, when you put in this on for an HBI, okay, 5B setup, this little L over here on this side goes to the left. Okay, so I say this is your main shaft, okay, and it would go on your left side, that L would go in just like that. Then we're going to put in the second speed, lock that up like that. Then your first gear. Of course, remember this is not the right shaft. Normally you have the set screws, they go in the front. You have to leave enough for it to touch on the screw, but not touch anywhere else over here, because then it's going to lock up. Okay, an example of that one. Okay, let's see if I have the other screw right here. Is on the car. Okay, I have these two little washers. Okay, and this is a black bone setup. Okay, once this is on, okay, this normally has to go all the way in. It's like this. I'm not gonna tighten it up for now, but you'll get the hint of it. That center screw has to stay not moving right here. Only when it's locked, it's gonna move. That's the one way for the first gear. Now, if you notice, you take this off here. I mean, this is a black bone setup, and you drop this gear out. Okay, the second gear, see, it's a freewheeling gear. Only when the claw opens up, pop this up quick. Only when the claw opens up would it able to grab and move, and they'll be able to work with the hub. That's how that part works. Okay, so we're gonna put this set right back where it was, just so everybody knows these are not the gears I'm gonna be running with. None of this is. And this little screw will go back on this side, just like that. I'll leave it loose. So remember, the carrier, the first gear, that locks for the first gear. Okay, once the second gear reaches a certain RPM, which would be the motor will have a certain RPM. As it raises, it's going to force these to open up. When it opens up, it's going to grab the second gear and leave the first gear spinning. I'm going to show you a little example about the parts of it spinning. Okay, next thing we're going to get into is basically the claw. This is the claw over here. This one is HPI, woven. We're going to talk about this one, which is FG also. Okay, you have one set screw right here on top. And take that out so you know the parts. That one comes out. You can use the long ones, or you could use these shorter ones over here. The short ones and long ones. Okay. The next one, when you're just taking it apart, is gonna be for the setting up the shift points. So you're gonna take this one out over here. Let's say you're replacing it at the track. So we're gonna take this one out. If she wants to come out, there you go. Okay. Now on these particular set screws, the two ways you can have these set screws. Okay. You can have this style, okay, which is flat. Normally some of them come round. Okay. And sometimes you could preset it with Loctite. So that way it gets a little bit grindy so the shift point doesn't change. Okay. And of course this is the spring that's inside of it. Little spring comes out, and then there's the ball. Okay, now it's very important about the ball and spring. Okay, on the ball and spring, okay, yeah, you could buy FG springs, but pretty sure the ball doesn't work. Okay, because I don't think it does, because I have FG balls here, and I never use the ball. I always use just the spring. Okay, and I'll show you why. Okay, going to the FG. This is the FG, claw to make everything open up. I always screw up the terminology on it. Okay, and these are the balls for it. Okay, the ball from one to the other, okay, they're slightly different. Okay, which is very important when they're slightly different. Okay, if you take, let's see, the one from the FG and you drop it in here, that's gonna fit in. Okay, and it's gonna come out. Okay, of course the ball from the HPI, what comes in when you buy them. Okay, of course, yeah, that's gonna fit. Yeah, no problem when it comes to that. Okay, now you go to the one of the cars. Okay, they come with the 2 speeds and everything like that. So we're gonna go to the area we're supposed to drop the ball, which is supposed to be here. So you're going to one of the HPI, okay, which is a smaller ball that drops in, and of course the spring's gonna drop in. That's no problem. Okay, now when it comes to the FG ball, this is the FG ball. It don't fit. That's just why I'm saying you don't use the ball. You just use the springs, or maybe you can have a manufacturer, somebody get you a set of the correct ball to have it. I have a bag of these. I really can't use them, unless I run them through a mill, and I can fix them if I have to. Okay, so you got to use the one that comes with the original part. Okay, now the next question is, can I use the one from the HPI Baja setup, King motor? Can I use an FG? Negative, you can't. Okay, the one for the HPIs and the Bajas, okay, right over here, mind you, this is not the correct shaft. Okay, so when you put this on top, that's gonna fit. That's the correct one. You go to FG, okay, the hole is smaller, does not fit. So this one is, you can't use that at all when it comes to that. So you have to stick with the one that you have. Okay, and also the part that strikes over, there's 2 different ones. Okay, the 2 different ones, the ones on the HPIs, they're smaller, and the ones for the FG are larger and they're thicker by size. Okay, so what we're gonna do is You want to try to set this, somewhat in a ballpark range so you could use it. Okay, so you got to remember this particular little unit here. You got to be very, very careful with it because you can mess it up really easy. You could crush your spring. Okay, example of crushed springs are the ones all I have over here. These little springs over here. Let me show you why. Hopefully you can see that little picture over here. Let me try to zoom in. Maybe you could. Okay, there we go. This is the one I took it out of the HPI. This is the one that smashed because it got overtimed. This was still partially smashed. So of course this one, you can't use that one. That's done. This is the one I'm going to use. Now even with the two lengths, okay, together, okay, there's still gonna be a difference between one and the other. Okay. If you're using a longer spring inside there, the screw that goes on top might stick out, might not stick out, but it's going to require more pressure, okay, on the spring, on the ball, okay, which is okay, having a lot of pressure, but then you have less thread on top, okay. So when it comes to the other one that you're going to put on top, which is going to be this one, which is a lot shorter, over here, you'll still have more thread in here on the top than the one over here. So a lot of times you have to find a shorter grub screw, okay, to go in here. Sometimes in this case you put one grub screw down. Once your shift point is running good, stop the car, take everything apart. You could take another one and you could probably put it on top. My cars sometimes they run two because I have it very short, and sometimes I cut them so they fit better, and I could have a really quick response on the shifting. Okay, so that's it for when it comes to that part, and we're gonna move on. How to set this up? Okay, remember this is the correct one. This is the HPI one. Okay, so you're gonna set the correct ball in here. Oop. Correct ball goes right in there. Okay, you got that little ball right there. Okay, I'm gonna use the taller spring because that's the one that was in here, and that's gonna be just fine. Drop the little one in there. Okay, then we're gonna put the little set screw inside here. Of course, remember there's a long one, there's a short one. Okay, depending on what you want to do. See? There's two different ones. Okay, we're gonna use the short one and put the one with the little preset Loctite. Now I'm gonna use this. This one's a little smaller. This will fit. Okay, we're gonna set the grub screw in right in here. All right, once that's all set, what you're gonna do to set this up, this is what I do. I come from which side's gonna be this side. The screw in the L is the one for the adjustment for this. The one on top is the one that goes down through the lay shaft. See, because that's the screw here, so that's the lay shaft, and the one here you can't see because that's the one that goes to the ball and spring. Okay, what I normally do, right, is I'll pull this up on one side. Let me just pull it up here. Another close-up. There you go. Is I'll take this over here, okay, and I'll start tightening it down into the claw, or what we call the striker, because it's called shifting claw. Bottoms out. Now already on the set screw in here, it's hitting the bottom, it's too squished. Okay, so you're gonna keep your finger pressure up here. You're gonna put your fingernail in there, you're gonna back up on it, and you're gonna start loosening this up. And you have to have at least half of that little hole that's over here to get the general point, and I'll show you why. Okay. Now the amount of pressure you have is about 2-3 pounds pulling this. See, it's a heavy snap. Okay. If you put in the screw too tight, this will not swing open. Okay, it's not gonna go into second gear. Okay, it just won't. If this is very, very loose, okay, and I'm gonna take it and loosen it up, when this part particularly spins, it's gonna go right into second gear. That's the biggest difference around this. So I'm gonna set it back, I'm gonna give it a little pull. You're gonna come back over here. You see the size of the hole? All right, watch. I'm gonna turn this in. You wanna get about half of that. Just keeping pressure on it into going down. Now right now it's already binding and touching inside here, so you might have to go with a shorter spring, but you can still work this one. Keep pressure on it so it's very tight. You're gonna back up on it just a little more. Half the screw. Okay. You have about 1 turn on this to operate. See, this is very hard. Okay. So this at a higher RPM is when it's gonna shift, or what we call a shift point later on the track. Let's say this was set up for 310 feet. You want to set up a little later. You want to set up in the mid. Okay, so you want to shift later. This has to be tighter. Okay, but we're not talking wrenching it down and going to break it. You're not doing none of that. All you're turning it on an adjustment, if you look over here, is just a little bit like this. That's it. And that's going to change how soft this is. Okay? See, it's got a little stiffness there. And you want to go a little, you want the car to shift a little earlier, so you want it a little looser. So again, we're not talking wrenching. We're talking, that's it, a little bit. We go back again. See, right now it's in a nice position. Okay? Never at one point you're going to show that whole circle that's inside over there. Okay? So you can remember, if it's too loose, okay, it's going to go into that gear. If it's too tight, it's going to not shift. It's going to stay down, and you won't shift. It's just going to run RPM. It's not going to do nothing. Okay? But the most important thing is if it's loose, okay, it just runs in that gear. Too tight, it's not going to catch it. It's not enough RPM. These all depend on RPM. Okay? So you got to find yourself your little give point between one and the other. The way this one feels is pretty tight. Not that tight, but good enough to run. Again, it's going to get just a little turn. And go back to it again. It should be moderate. I'm thinking probably pulling 4 or 5 pounds. I wish I could put a tool here to measure this, how much pull, and do some testing and see how much pull you need to get at a certain RPM. Again, these operate solely on RPM. Okay. Now we're going to get to how it strikes. How it strikes in here. I'm going to show you 1 second. Okay. This is basically the king motor. That's the black bone. You know, the other one. Okay. So when the one-way bearing locks on the motor, that turns to the left. You know, and this is going to turn to the right. It's the same direction as the wheels turn. Okay. So if you go to the car and it turns to the right, the wheels go to the right. That's because it's 3 gears in there. An FG would be the other way around. It's a totally different game. Okay, so turning it to the right, wheels go forward. It's 3 gears in the transmission. Okay, the motor itself turns to the left. So when this goes down, this switches around, and that's your locking first gear or one-way bearing when it comes in there. Okay, so now we're gonna get back to the action of what happens in here. From holding in the back, okay, if I turn this is the way the gear goes. Goes to the right, it makes the car go forward. Now mind you, I'm still turning this way to the right. Okay, so now I go back and still turning to the right, back here. Okay, let me see if I get it done this right. One little bit, okay. what happens is when you're turning it to the right, okay, let's see if I get to do it. Okay, you see how this begins to swing down inside here? That's how it's going to catch it. Inside, just like this. So as this spins around, okay, it's going to come up. It's not really going to close, because it's going to keep pressure on there, and that's what's going to carry the gear. Okay, even if it catches anywhere inside here and it's all the way up, it'll catch it. But these are the points where it's supposed to catch it. Okay, so once this swings around and it keeps doing, it's going to stay open. It's not going to go open, close, open, close. At higher RPM, that's going to stay locked out. Okay, which is taking up the space inside here. And since the bearing is a free spinning bearing, is going to override the one-way bearing. That's why you can have the 2 gears, and then you have the one-way bearing. So once it swings around again, it's going to swing out like this, pretty much catching that area. So there's 2 spots to catch. Now when a car slows down, this is going to retract in with less RPM. So when it's swinging around, now when this slows down more than the other gear, your one-way bearing will catch. Okay, which is always constant revolutions. Is going. But when this one surpasses it, it goes past the bearing. That's how 2-speed works. Okay, so I hope you liked the little video on the 2 speeds. And to answer another question, you know, when it comes to these particular 2 speeds, okay, does the King motor fit? Mind you, wrong back. Does the King motor fit back here? Yeah, they're the same. The lace shafts are the same. So if I go over here, drop this out, pull this one out, take the little bearing, whoop, a little different. I don't know if you can see inside there, right? What's in here, this lace shaft and the claw, okay, are the same ones for the 2 companies. So you can still take this whole gear setup, okay, right? Mind you, wrong gear over here, and it's gonna fit. All the parts fit on, so don't worry about it. You can have 2 different companies, you can have 2 different gear charts, 2 different gears, everything, but the part's gonna fit. Because remember, you know, once you put that in, you still gotta change these depending on what you're doing. You cannot mix and match the 2 parts. Okay, unless you start doing something, you know, really creative. Okay, so you gotta remember that once you're doing these cars, yeah, be very careful what you do. Some people say, oh, they're just toys. No, these things could actually hurt you, do all sorts of weird things. You know, we don't want nobody to get hurt. Remember, guys, at the end of the day, you know, it's a hobby, and everything I've told you here is an opinion. This is due through the experience I've done with the cars. Right now, my little car's, you know, basically done. You know, I'm having fun. Just get everything all set. Hopefully, you know, we get the car back on the track. You know, so we're gonna see what happens with everything. So hope you enjoyed the video. Any other questions? You know, see if I have time. I'll put a link in the description. You know, email address or something like that. Because I had one of my subscribers ask, "Can you please explain the 2-speed?" There are a lot of companies that show you how to put the 2 speeds together. They don't sit and explain. But on one of my other videos, it's got 3,700 views on just my gearing. And I might do another style gearing video maybe in the future. But for now, this is how 2 speeds work, what you can and cannot do. So I hope you guys, you know, enjoy the video. Remember, it's just a hobby. Have fun. God bless you all. And remember, see you at the line.